It believes in organising itself on a cell structure, not a mass political movement, and it believes there is a certain amount of security in following a cell structure, so that infiltration by the police or security organisations is limited to the persons involved in a particular cell.
Combat 18's hit lists appear in its members-only bulletin called Red Watch. Copies obtained by World in Action reveal that scores of people have been targeted. They also reveal why. Combat 18 is a fanatical neo-Nazi group whose intended victims are usually Jews or its political opponents. Several MPs are singled out for harassment.
These publications have been called hit lists. Is that fair?
I think that's a very fair description, because what other interpretation can one place on a list of names and addresses circulated to members? It must be for the purpose of at least harassment.
And at worst?
And at worst, severe physical attack.
March the 27th at a bookshop in East London. The quiet of a normal Saturday is about to be shattered.
They were wearing hoods with slits showing only their eyes. They had carved and painted wooden clubs.
Freedom Press, a small radical publishers for over 100 years, had become the latest victim of Combat 18. The cell carrying out the attack worked with clinical efficiency.
Within a couple of minutes, and this happened very quickly, within 2 or 3 minutes, they smashed anything to do with typesetting. There's a computer typesetting machine and another machine which is a laserjet printer. They smashed that with their clubs and then went straight off out. Definitely this was with military precision. Yes, these people knew what they were doing.
Before they left, the raiding party left a calling card. Above a door they sprayed C-18. Until now, little has been known about Combat 18. Its Red Watch hit list was seen only by its own members. The rare copies which leaked out gave only a post office box address in America. But that address is a clue to the shadowy figure behind Combat 18. Greensboro, North Carolina in the United States. In November 1979, right-wing fanatics attack a demonstration against the Ku Klux Klan. They produce guns and they open fire. They kill 5 people. It became known as the Greensboro Massacre. Pulling the triggers were members of several Ku Klux Klan and Nazi groups. One of their leaders, though he was not present at the shootings, was a veteran Nazi called Harold Covington. The American address given on C-18's Red Watch hit lists is Covington's own P.O. box in North Carolina. Dixie Press is his publishing company, also based in North Carolina. Red Watch describes how any information about potential targets is to be sent to the Dixie Press address, and
our brothers in America will then redirect any correspondence back to our safe address here in England.
And in Red Watch, Combat 18 thanks Big H in North Carolina for his help. Tried before an all-white Southern jury, all the Greensboro gunmen were acquitted. But interviewed even as his men stood trial, Covington had no regrets about what had happened.
I do not give a happy damn about their human rights or anything else. They got what they deserved.
You show no remorse toward the families or the victims?
One shouldn't show remorse for stamping on a rattlesnake.
And even then, Covington was talking about a new approach for his followers.
We've got a whole new plan, a whole new method of operating that we're going to initiate. It's a response to the fact that the government has tried to kill us here 4 times in the past 18 months. And it involves putting the party on a semi-underground status, but it also involves a whole new tactical direction for the movement.
Harold Covington no longer appears in his stormtrooper's uniform, but he's still an active Nazi. And today he's putting into action his plan to build an underground Nazi movement. In his own newsletter, Resistance, he describes how he's setting up a network of cells across the world. One of those cells is Combat 18. Covington is much more than just Combat 18's postman. Last year, after shaving off his characteristic beard, he was staying secretly in Britain. Here he linked up with British Nazis to set up Combat 18. Travelling on an Irish passport, obtained when he married an Irish woman, he spent last summer in this house in East London. When his cover was blown, he abandoned the house and fled. He hasn't been seen in public since. He was in Britain at exactly the time that Combat 18's campaign of death threats began.
It's very significant that Covington is involved. He's not just another loony right-winger attracted by the fantasy of Nazi uniforms or Ku Klux Klan. He's a man with a long history of involvement in violent activity. What it gives them the experience of organising on a clandestine basis. It gives them the experience of the use of violence and how to target your enemies, how to collect information on your enemies, which is what his organisation was doing in America in the 70s. Covington is trying to build a clandestine neo-Nazi organisation dedicated to violent activity, as he did in America.
Earlier this year, one C-18 member broke ranks. We'll call him Simon. Alarmed at what he was getting into, he contacted World in Action. He told us what C-18 was set up to do and how it does it. To protect his identity, we've used an actor. But these are Simon's exact words.
Well, basically, we're talking about political terror. People on the far right have always said that too much time was spent talking about things and what was needed was action. When the opposition to the far right got organised and there was a real call for it, and the people involved just decided to put something together and basically give the right-wing punters what they wanted, which is Red's heads being cracked.
And soon heads were being cracked. World in Action has established that at least 2 serious gang attacks last year, where people were badly injured, were secretly planned and carried out by Combat 18.